On this week's episode, we're hard mounting the air compressor and this little tank I got here into the Samurai for the TRE air locker. Alright guys, welcome back to Fab and Adventures here. Today we're hard mounting the old 2781 Smitty built that I've had for a while into the Samurai. This tank here we're going to mount. I got this off Amazon. A few of these little other accessories I got off Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below so you guys can check this stuff out if you want to mount her up, if you want to go this way for the air locker. So basically what I got to do is I got to make a mount, a bracket in the back to mount the air compressor in this tank here too, and just hook some lines up and hook her all up to the battery. I'm going to probably use an Anderson plug to connect 12 volt power from the battery to this compressor, a little bit of wiring, and she'll be good to go. So when I put that hybrid diff in, it's just a matter of hooking up an airline. So let's get after it. All right, so I'm just going to use some checker plate to build this bracket to hold the compressor in the tank, and just some scrap checker plate I got around here, and we're just going to torch her off here with the old plasma cutter. Okay, so here's the plan I've come up with. I've got this strip here, and I'm going to weld these couple of diamond plate pieces on each end, and then this wedge one will get welded underneath, and then I'm going to weld this entire thing to the inside checker plate panel on the back of the Zook there, and it'll work like a little shelf. And then we'll put the compressor on it. We'll put the tank on here somewhere. I haven't quite decided exactly where, so that I can still get at the drain valve here. And that'll be basically all I'll be doing. And I might make a little box in here just to hold parts, or who knows, you know, whatever you need, a air fill chuck or something like that for the whole ensemble here for filling tires or whatever. And I think I'm gonna go with that. So let's weld this up. Alright, so we got the old panel made. Now we're just gonna remount it back in there, and then we'll mount the compressor and the air tank on there. And that's as far as we're gonna get tonight. We'll continue on tomorrow. All right, now that we got the air compressor and the tank installed, we just have to add the air fittings for the locker and the solenoid, do some wiring, and she's ready to roll. Ready to install the old hybrid diff, plug the air lines in, and we'll have air lockers. All right, so I just finished tightening up the old pressure switch here, and that's what sends a signal to the compressor. When this air tank runs below 90 psi, this switch will trigger. It'll turn the air compressor on. When the tank hits 110 or so, it'll flip again, the switch will flip, and the air compressor will shut off. This here is your solenoid to your air locker. So when you flick the switch on the dash, you get power here, solenoid clicks, sends your pressure down to the air locker, locks the diff. This here is your return line, that return oil line. The other thing I added was a little valve over here where we can attach the old coiled line that came with this air compressor, and then you can fill your tires, or you can hook up a blow gun or something like that if you needed to blow dust out of something. Yeah, so all that's left basically is to wire this switch into here. I'll have to take this back cover off and wire it, and it's just a loop through the switch. Live goes through here and back through the switch, and that should turn it back on. And then I have to run a big power line from the battery there to our secondary battery here that'll run our fridge and the inverter, and we should be basically done this here project. So what we're doing here is we're installing a circuit breaker where the main power comes from the starting battery to the auxiliary battery through this Anderson plug And in order to protect this main live wire that comes from the main battery, we have the battery doctor dual battery isolator in the engine compartment. Basically has a circuit breaker protection on it, so that if there's a short out, it saves it from the battery doctor dual battery isolator thing. So we need protection on this side also, if we get a short, that it will trip out and not cook this wire and start a fire. So that's just basically what we are doing here right now. Alright, so what I've done here is I've taken an old set of booster cables, or pretty much a new set of booster cables. It seems like it's cheaper to buy them booster cables on sale than it is to buy the raw cable. And I've made up a pigtail for this battery with an Anderson plug on the end of it. And the line coming from the battery will have another Anderson plug on it. It'll click in here, it'll be alive coming from the battery to this one. And the ground will ground to a part on the chassis. And that'll be simple. If we need to take this battery out, it's just a matter of unhooking the Anderson plug and pulling the battery out. So let's install this Anderson plug. So now, since I'm installing two batteries, a dual battery setup in the Samurai, we're going to need an isolator. And I picked up this isolator here off Amazon. Real cheap, real simple. I'm going to give it a try. I'll leave a link in the description below. If it works good, I'll let you guys know. And if you're looking at doing something like that and it works good, then go ahead and purchase it off my link in the description below. I found where I want to mount this little bracket to mount the battery isolator, or just mount it where the old air box used to be. Got nothing sitting here anyhow, so we'll just tighten the little bracket down good and solid. And then this just kind of slides down there until it pops onto the appropriate hole. And just screw these screws home, and there she sits. So I'm just going to crimp on this eyelet here, and then we can mount it to our battery isolator. This wire here goes to the second battery in the back. Need a pretty stout crimper for that 6-gauge wire. And then we're just gonna pull our insulation back over it, heat her up. Now we just have to attach a live from the battery to this side, and we should be good to go. Now all we should have to do is hook up our Anderson plug, and we should be smiling. That should complete our dual battery install. So now when the Suzuki's running, charging the front battery, when the front battery comes to full charge, then it will recharge the auxiliary battery, and should work perfect. I'll have this little inverter hooked up to it. I'll have the compressor hooked up to it here pretty soon, and the fridge will be able to be hooked up to it, and it'll be awesome. So now the solenoid activation wire here, I couldn't find a plug like this in town, so I just got some plug pigtails like this, and I'm just going to cut these wires, solder these in, and then I'll have a wire that goes from here down to my switch on the dash, and that'll activate the solenoid, and we'll try that out later. Alright, so let's try it out. This battery here is pretty well dead by the sounds of it. Now we should just be able to hit this switch and it should activate the solenoid. And the air should come out right here. Perfect. So there we go. That concludes the onboard air and dual battery setup. Pretty simple. I'm not a big wiring whiz. If I can figure it out, pretty much anybody can do it. So now I'm basically pretty well ready to install the hybrid, hook up my air lines, and then I got to rebuild my front diff, new bearings, new seals, put the 430 gears with the Spartan locker in the front, and she's good to go. I'll have an air locker in the rear, Spartan in the front, and 430 gears. Should be pretty awesome. So if you guys like this sort of content, go ahead, subscribe, share, like, hit the bell to be notified. Don't forget to turn on your notifications. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's @fabin_adventures. If you want to help support the channel, go ahead, look in the link in the description below to my Patreon account. Sign up, it's fairly cheap. It helps the channel out just a little bit. Till next Friday, catch you guys next time.